Okay, this is LeetCode 53, maximum subarray. So basically all the questions asking is to find the subarray with the largest sum in a given array. And the key idea for solving this question is to basically use a concept called K-Dane's algorithm, which is a dynamic programming algorithm. And it's an algorithm designed specifically to solve this problem, which is finding the maximum subarray in an array. So basically how it works is we keep track of a current sum, which is basically we want to figure out which subarray we're including. And so current will basically be the sum of our subarray that we're using. So let's say we start at -2. So our current is technically 0, I guess. And so once we read -2, we can either include it in the current subarray or we can not include it. And so the idea is if we were to include it, our current would become -2. Let's say we have this 1, we read into 1. Let's say we include it as well, then our subarray sum becomes -1, and so on. But the key idea here is basically every time we see a negative number, or every time our current sum becomes negative, we want to stop the subarray. And so I guess let's make an example. Let's just let's just say we have 3, 3, and -2. Okay, so the largest subarray by inspection is this 2 3s. It's going to have a sum of 6. And so basically what we know is if our current is negative, so if we include the -2, the sum goes down to -4 because it's this current sum plus the sum of the remaining. So basically in every case where the current is negative, so let's say we have a bunch of numbers and the current is negative, let's say it's equal to -2, and then we have a new subarray and it has like a value of 10. Well, we would just not include the current. We would start a new subarray because 10 is always going to be bigger than including the current subarray. So like if we added both of these together, our total sum would become 8 because that's -2 plus 10, which is going to be less than 10 in the first place. So we just want to start a new subarray. So this is basically the condition of where we would start a new subarray, is when our current becomes negative. Because if our current becomes negative, we know that discarding the current will always be the best play. So I hope that made sense. And so once you understand that, it becomes fairly straightforward. Basically, all you're doing is you're keeping track of a max sum. So let's keep track of a maximum sum. At the beginning, we just started at like -infinity, so it can actually read a value, and we start the current at 0. So do we want to include -2? Well, so yeah, one of the edge cases you do have to be careful about is actually remembering to, so let's say we only had this -2, it was the only element in the array. In this case, the maximum sum would actually be -2 and not 0. So basically, you just have to be careful of when you reset your current, you can't use the 0. When you reset your current, you can't use that reset value as part of your max sum. So you always have to be careful of resetting after you update a max sum. So basically, let's do this. So in this case, our maximum is -2. Our current is going to be -2, and then we'll reset it the next, once we read the next element. So now we read a 1, we're going to reset it and only read 1. So we excluded the -2, and our maximum is going to be 1. This is going to be pretty slanted, so let's just move this over like so. Read a -3, so our current is -2 again, and our max is still 1. We reset, we read 4. Maximum is now 4 because 4 is bigger than 1. We read a -1, so our current becomes 3. And then 3 is less than 4, so we include 4. But we're still going to include the -1 because our current is greater than 0. So now we read in 2, this becomes 5. and now our max is 5. We read in a 1, becomes 6. Reads in a -5, so this becomes 1. And now our max is still 6, and then we read in a 4, this is 5, and our max is still 6. So the output is 6, it matches with this. And so basically this is how Cadian's algorithm works. It basically just revolves around the basic idea of, like, if the current falls negative, we know that the remaining, starting a new subarray will always return a larger value than including the current. So it just has some logic to decide when to reset your subarray. And then you just follow like a standard approach of looping through the array and adding elements into your window. And yeah, that's about it.